Insanity, insanity, whatever happened to humanity? Ooh.
The Black Phone is a 2022 supernatural horror film that has been directed by Scott Dickerson. It's also been written by Dickerson and C. Robert Cargill. In 1978, a serial child abductor named the Grabber prowls the streets of Denver suburb. As he kidnaps these children, he leaves a black balloon as a sign of his appearance. One of the kids, named Finney, gets abducted by the Grabber and has to use each of the victims' clues to help him escape. I thought this movie was great. I thought this movie was fantastic. I had a very good time watching this film. Now, people know that I have a very good soft spot for horror films, but that doesn't mean that I let horror films slide no matter what the genre of horror is. By me being a big fan of horror, that means that I am looking at horror films with a thick-ass microscope. And what I love about The Black Phone is that it's not just a horror film by its name. It is horror by creativity. A lot of horror films are slashers. They like to do things when it comes to getting the suspense up, when it comes to characters being abducted. They do that here, but it's in its own creative way. They don't want to just get you pulled in by the kidnapping and the abduction and people trying to find out where these kids are being held at. But they put a lot of good creativity with horror in this film. They like to focus on some gore aspects. Same thing when it comes to the paranormal aspects as well. Now, they don't force that on you, but they know when to put that on the table when you, the viewer, is watching and being entertained enough. And I cannot give this film enough praise for this. It's been a hell of a long time since I watched a film like this, and I liked it, a horror film from start to finish, especially the ending. Speaking of horror genres on this film gives you a lot of good 1978 vibes to it, and that's one of the things I like about this film a lot, is that by me not being around in the 1970s and I watch a film that's based on those times, I want to get pulled in by seeing how things was back then, especially when it comes to the horror aspects. And yeah, I was pulled in a lot. Now, when you watch this film, you're going to get a lot of good vibes when it comes to Stranger Things, the original classic horror of the Halloween movie, and Dr. Sleep as well. As for character dialogue and development, I don't really have no problem with it. Some people may say that it dragged and it took a while to get there, but I didn't mind. By me mentioning that it took that I wanted you to get into the hinges and for you to get to the feel of the 1978 style, that's because of the pacing. By us being intertwined with those times, it wanted us to be introduced with the environment, how things was, how kids being abducted, and the character development as well, especially with the main characters that will be introduced into this film. And I would like to say that the pacing of those characters was great. I thought it was well warranted. They gave me enough for me to care about them and the side characters that was introduced to us, and I didn't have no problem with it at all. I thought it was good. One of the main strengths of this film is that it stays in the thrilling side of you being on the edge of your seat from start to finish. A lot of horror films have potential. A lot of horror films have material here. But what I know is about horror films and horror shows and horror movies is that they do good when it comes to us being in the suspense of knowing what the hell is going on. So we come in being confused of what's happening, who's the main enemy, and how things are going to get figured out. But by the time we figure things out, the film turns to a sci-fi. It gets all over the place. I mention this a lot of times when I do reviews like this. But no, The Black Phone knows when to stay in its lane and knows when to throw new things at you. I was on the hinges. I was literally jumping up a lot. And they had some good creative horror aspects for you to be involved in things that you don't want to be involved in, especially the Black Phone itself. Oh, Lord have mercy. Jesus Christ. The Black Phone. And there is a Black Phone in this film. This phone will traumatize the hell out of you, especially when you hear voices. I think that's one of the main things of this film that scared me a lot. There were times where I did not want the main protagonist to answer the phone, but he has to so he could figure things out. And man, it was, whew. You have to watch the film. You have to watch the film. There's more than just the phone, but it's one of the main strengths here. Ethan Hawke's performance is fantastic as well. Now, Ethan Hawke, I had low expectations with Ethan Hawke. Last horror film, he probably done more, but the last horror film that I've seen that he was on was Sinister, and I didn't like Sinister that much. It did bad when it came to the scares, the suspense. I seen it coming a mile away, and then right when it came, it didn't jump me, but it made me be aware of just what to expect with a film like that. I did not like Sinister that much, but he made up for it here. He did good as a very imposing enemy, a scary villain, and a goddamn terrifying dude. There was times when I would see him and I just could not make sense of his character. And killers, child abductors, do you want to try to understand them? And that's what I like about Ethan Hawke's character. I don't think nobody would have done what he did. And if they did, they probably wouldn't even have done a great job like he done. He has killed the shit out of this role. I loved him in this film. Every time I seen him, I got glued to the screen. If it wasn't him, then it was a goddamn phone itself. But there was one thing that threw me off with him. The damn mask. Now, I know the mask is supposed to be the replication of his character as he portrays himself in this film. But why the hell does his mask look like Don Johnson? I have to put that out there. He looks a lot like Don Johnson in this film when he puts that mask on. Even the front cover. If I can compare these two, you can't tell them apart. And I think people know this, but they don't want to bring it up. But hey, that's just my vision. Maybe I'm stupid. I'm going to end the note by saying this. The movie is good from start to finish. There are people that are criticizing this film because they were saying it was not scary, it was not horror enough, and the suspense was way too outlandish for the film to take place. Some people compared it, saying that it was the multiverse of madness of where it should have been instead of being PG-13. This movie is rated R though, but horror is subjective. Like what are you afraid of? I like movies like this because by pulling you in from those times in the 1970s, I feel like it's more scarier back then because we have very less things to rely on when it comes to cell phones and when it comes to communication. No cameras in the streets or whatever. We just got to go by what people say and what people have heard and just go by that hunch. And they have done this well. The only thing I will say is this that kind of drew me away was I wish we know more about the protagonist and his sister Gwen's parents. Because we get introduced by certain things that they can do on the film and they explain it by their family. But I kind of wish they showed more of the family tree more than, like, I kind of wish they'd done like what Dr. Sleep has done. Show us the pacing of the kids and their family tree and then get introduced of how it ended up, originating to them. It would have been a perfect film if they would have done that. But although this film has passed some flying colors, it passed in my opinion when it comes to me being pulled in with horror and it being what it meant to be. I'm going to have to give The Black Phone an A+. Last film that I gave the highest score to, I can't remember. But that's what happens when you review things all the time. But even though I mentioned that flaw, this even if the film had that, I go hard on my reviews. I go hard on my scores. But the reason why I give scores, I give movies in anything the highest score because if you give me something to the table and it's supposed to be what you have told me it was, then it passes. Extra things that I mentioned can be added on to it, but as long as I'm satisfied without it, then we're never going to have no problems. Well, that's all I got to say for today. Please stay tuned for more upcoming reviews and videos. Hit it your way. This is Hugo, your critic teacher, and you guys have a good day.